So welcome, thank you, and I bring you greetings from Compassionate Atlanta, my co-director, my co-director Leanne Rubenstein. It is lovely to come back to this space. I love this community, and I'm really appreciative of the opportunity. And I especially love the band. Right? What is it about strings? Right? What is it about strings? I love it. Thank you so much.
We love them too.
So Melanie told me the theme this month around these parts is oneness, right? And I noticed in the music, we carried this theme forward, and I want us to just play with it a little bit and talk about it, and let's see where it fits in. Let's see where we can do some learning. Let's see what we can introduce that's new. Let's see what we can introduce that's a reminder. And let's see what we can let go of, right? So I was thinking, I've been thinking, as whenever someone asks me to give a talk, if it's not like my first talk, which is always about compassion, I start thinking I have to visit with the concept, and keep it in my mind and daily make notes and stuff. And as is my practice, the first thing I do, because I grew up in a home of educators, is grab the dictionary and look up the word, even if I think I know what the word means. So I'm a big dictionary person. A couple of dictionaries define oneness as the fact or state of being unified or whole, though comprised of two or more parts, the oneness of man and nature, of humanity and nature. Another one is the quality or state of fact of being one, such as singleness, integrity, wholeness, harmony, sameness, identity, unity, union. Some I agree with, some I don't agree with. Sameness, for instance, we're not all the same. But it took me to a class in seminary on pastoral care, and a post-colonial writer, Emmanuel Lartey from Ghana, who his fundamental premise of pastoral care is that in some ways we're exactly alike, in some ways we're some way alike, and in some ways we're not alike at all. So there are three concentric circles, and your uniqueness is in there, yet it doesn't absolve you of the fact that we all breathe air, right? And I was also thinking about how what oneness speaks to for me is that it's kind of like oxygen, right? We all breathe oxygen, yet the carbon molecules, the nitrogen, all those things on the chemical periodic table. Did this thing go out? Okay. We're all made of the same components, right? What does that mean? Why? Why weren't we made so totally different from each other? And one, I think, kind of like when you're baking bread versus baking cake, two different things, but many of the same ingredients. Some of it is because there is a place of harmony we need to live in to be one, to relate. So the older I get, the more introverted I get. I was this extremely extroverted young person, always wanted to be around other people, but then I love to read, and you can't read around other people. So the older I've gotten, the more solitude I need to refresh, regroup, recharge. And then I can go out and be around people like you, and then go back home and be all alone. My aloneness is representative of my uniqueness, right? I don't want to be around other people. I just want to be me and take my hat off and just be all me, right? Yet we only thrive in community with others. We only thrive in community with others. And so the aspects of our lives that we need to be alone, hopefully you shower alone or use the bathroom alone, that kind of thing. You need that, at least that level of privacy. And then Here is community, like what we're doing here in this space today, coming together to commune together. Yet, in communing together, inevitably, conflict is going to come up. Conflict. You parked in my parking spot, you sat in the seat I always sit in, you stepped on my toe, you spilled coffee all over me, whatever it is, right? And I've actually gotten to a place of having a different take on conflict, in that conflict is a process to oneness. It is not the result of separation. Let me say that again. Conflict is process to oneness. It is not the result of separation. We live in a very conflicted world right now. Very conflicted. All kinds of things going on. Can't even put on the news. The news is a representation of what is of all sorts of conflict, whether it's global, whether it's political, whether it's financial. These conflicts, we're fed daily, every day. We're immersed in the awareness of conflict. And I took a class in seminary on conflict transformation. As a lawyer, I was trained in conflict. Where there is no conflict, create one so you can get paid. Not really. But law practice is, training for lawyers is designed to cause you to be a representation in the face of conflict for the most part, right? Seminary taught me conflict is an opportunity to seek oneness, to seek transformation. We have conflict resolution, we have conflict management. I learned conflict transformation. That where these opportunities come up, it's an opportunity to see that where the rub is where God, Source, Father, Mother, gives opportunity for healing. Because alone, we're not whole. I am, as an African, I'm originally from Nigeria. I'm Yoruba. My tribe is Yoruba. As a Yoruba woman, I'm very much aware of community. We do everything in community. We're much more communal than the Western American society. If my sister's getting married, all the people, not just the bridesmaids, all the people coming from my side of the family are going to wear the same color outfits. That's how you identify. We call them uniforms. That's how you identify that these are my people. And I think of at the American Academy of Religion conference, my Kenyan friend and her father were in town, and there was this troop of us. He wanted to go to where the book sales were, and there was this troop of us, just all these Africans, gaily colored, everything, just going behind this man. And I was like, stop. Why are we all going to the bookstore? We were like, we're Africans. That's just what we do. The head of the pack is heading there. We're going there. So I come from this very big awareness of community. That's very different from a Western concept of community, right? And in Africa, we talk about Ubuntu and the philosophy of Ubuntu, which is I am because we are. I cannot be here at One World Spiritual Center talking to you guys if you were not here. If the invitation didn't come from you, and you didn't set up a time and place and chairs and music and all of that, I wouldn't be here in this role. I am because you are. And so in my work in leadership development, leaders have to understand followership. We preach leadership a lot, but do we preach followership? And followership changes depending on what's going on in the culture. Back when people didn't have education, The leader was generally the most educated. What do we do today? Where the followers probably have more education than the leaders, right? Right? Oneness. There is no leader without followers, which speaks to democracy in American culture, right? And our ability to vote. That's where our power comes in with leadership. Back to the subject of Ubuntu and oneness, that is how oneness rolls out. That is how it rolls out, that we are one because not one of us can be without the other. So when we talk about conflict, there is no conflict without two or more. Sometimes we feel conflicted within ourselves, but that's because we have two or more competing thoughts in our brains, right? So if we think of conflict, if I'm in conflict with you, and I think of you as part of me, it reshapes our energy around conflict, doesn't it? It makes me realize it's not about me being right and you being wrong. It's about our usness, our togetherness, our oneness. And so some of us do this instinctively we compromise, we give in, we say, well, okay, fine. Some of us are not so married to our positions. But the thing I find is that there's so much awareness needed. Awareness that, oh, wait a minute, I am bringing up the energy of negative conflict into this interaction. I'm thinking I'm right, you're wrong already, just because. And that awareness requires more awareness. Okay, I'm thinking this. How am I behaving? What is this person actually saying? What are my values? What are my principles? How do I get to listen and receive from this person and from what this conflict is? And when you're stressed, all that lovely thought goes out the window. When you're angry, when you're, in the throes of passion, you don't think like that. And so that's why it's important to think like that when you're not upset, when you're not sick, when you're not stressed out about money, so that it becomes a default pattern when the stresses of life come up, right? So I feel in compassionate language, compassionate integrity training that we do in Compassionate Atlanta, we talk about interconnectedness. As that's probably another language for oneness, easily. So I brought my cup of coffee into this meeting space this morning, and when I think of how many hands that coffee went through to get to me, we've all done this exercise. My ability to function and be coherent with you this morning is tied in to some unknown person in Kenya, because I drink a particular blend of Kenyan coffee, who picks coffee, makes coffee. I don't even know the process of how you get the pods and everything, right? So my ability to be here, I honor the coffee picker and the coffee packer and the coffee transporter and the pilot of the plane that flew those coffee grinds to the coffee beans to wherever, to however it made its way to the DeKalb Farmers Market, and however the money I made, the water, the people that make sure we have a sewer system so that water is coming out the faucet, to the manufacturer of the coffee pot, which came from Germany. So Kenya meets Germany, airline pilot Iyabo in Atlanta. My ability to be coherent this morning is based on that interconnectedness. So if I treat this person who's probably making pennies for picking this coffee, if I think of that person as so far away that life has no bearing on my life, they're an object. And I don't honor, by just being thoughtful and aware, that right here, right now, I'm coherent because of a cup of coffee from that person. That is how interconnected the web of our lives is. And my concern is we know this, it's a lovely intellectual exercise I've taken us on this morning about a cup of coffee, but how does this translate into our daily lives? We feel oneness with the gentleman you prayed for that you said was a teacher here. We feel oneness with you and the pulled muscle and your suggestion that you're volunteering him. All of this, we feel it, right? But it's right here in this pocket. How do you feel it for the homeless population downtown? For drug addicts, people suffering with opioid use, the disparity in our mass incarceration system, we have, tell me your son's name again. Nick, we have Nick, so we're aware about people with developmental disabilities, but there's some communities where we hide them away, we don't put them front and center, conducting the orchestra. How do we develop sensitivity and compassion for those who are so different from us, for that trans life, for that LGBTQIA member? How do we hold that as part of us? Because without them, there is no us. There are no true thems. We're so connected as human beings and we lose sight of it. I pontificate and opine that capitalism does this to us. And I promise you, I'm not trying to live in a non-capitalistic society. I love money. It buys me coffee. And other things, right? I have no issues with that. But any human-made system can easily fall off the track on either end. So we have to be suspicious, sort of, and try and keep some balance in the middle. And one of the things to use to judge is how many people is this affecting? Is it all of us? Is our oneness intact with this system? If we hold the value of oneness, is it intact with this system? Or does this system exclude? And by its very definition, capitalism excludes. I am trying. The biggest challenge in my life right now is Amazon. I am trying to detox from Amazon. I cannot believe that I've contributed to making the world's first trillionaire. And I have, in all my glory, I have, right? And I'm trying to be Amazon free. And I'm having a very hard time. Is there anybody else who's trying to be Amazon free? So I'm fine with the shopping part. But I have a shopping list. Like if you tell me the name of a book, I'm immediately on my phone and I put it in my cart and I save it. So I have probably 400 things on my later list and my wish list on Amazon. So it's a process to take it off of Amazon and go put it somewhere else. And I listen to Audible and I use Amazon Prime and all of this stuff. And why is there a trillionaire on the planet and their employees that don't have health insurance? Right. That is the antithesis, the complete opposite of oneness. That's what the awareness needs to be in our hearts. It's not okay. I don't care how you paint it. And then we say, well, he's hardworking, he's smart. No, he had opportunity. don't call people hardworking. Assess the opportunity that got that person there. I come from a family that valued education. I came out the womb knowing I wouldn't just go to college, I'd have advanced degrees. This was like normative in my home. For people that grow up in homes that's not normative, they don't see opportunity the way I see opportunity, right? Again, oneness, compassion for those that have experiences that are different from ours. And so we have to have policies that don't exclude and reward just opportunities, right? Because I so believe in all of us being smart. I don't care who the person is. I don't care if they're homeless, drug addicted. If you give people opportunities without the baggage, they will thrive. It's like seeds you put in soil. If the soil is good, that seed will burst forth with life, beauty, growth, and will sprout. And we live in a system, when our capitalism falls off the grid and goes into a toxic capitalism, we live in a system where there's certain myths. Oh, he's so hardworking is how he got there. And I'm not saying he's not hardworking, but I'm saying opportunity put that person there more than hardworking. We need to think about who among us don't have the same opportunities. Where are we blocking opportunities? How do we vote to make sure people with opportunity, that our officials are willing to give people opportunities so that we can thrive? When I thrive, you thrive. When you thrive, I thrive. And so we've got to think of expanding our sense of community, not just to the people we like, not just to the people that look like us, not just to our gender, not just to our age group, right? The more diverse we are, the stronger we are. The more our usness grows and makes us even stronger. And so this thing of oneness is sacred, because when I see that God in you, when I think of one of the first philosophical theology type books I read in my life was Martin Buber's I and Thou. And all these years, I was 16, and all these years that has stayed with me. As long as you're I and you're an it, and nobody says in their head, oh, that's an it over there. Nobody says that. But your vibe, your thinking, when you put someone in a box, that's an it. But when I see you as sacred and holy creation made by an amazing creator, in love, made in compassion, made with sweetness, made with beauty. When I see you like that, I cannot help but see my own self like that. You're not special. You're beautiful. I'm beautiful too. You know? And we don't, oftentimes it's our own, us in that part of the equation. We wake up depressed, we feel we're sick, we're also aware of our own limitations, our inabilities, and we overcompensate. And so as we practice being at one with our own selves, not being so fragmented, then we can extend it out to others. As we practice self-compassion, our interdependence becomes a smoother, easier relationship. And so today, my invitation to you is to reframe conflict as an opportunity for growth so that oneness can come into play, whether it's conflict within yourself, whether it's conflict in your immediate community, family, church, work, whether it's conflict out there in the world, it relates to you. What's going on with the Kurds in Syria, it relates to you here today. What's going on with the economy, whatever the unemployment rate looks like, it relates to you. The policies at your job that keep people with developmental disabilities out, keeps a trans person out, it relates to you. Whatever's on your job, wherever there are tiers where everybody looks the same, it's an indication of not oneness, believe it or not, right? And so my invitation to you today is to really, just like you turn on the light switch, turn on an awareness and have an awareness of your awareness and begin to see in what ways you get to make a change. You get to introduce oneness into your workspace, into your family, into your home, with a lens of compassion, with understanding that without you, there is no me. I have no identity. When I stand before you as a Yoruba black woman, and biracial, but whatever, I cannot use those words. They're all in comparison to other words, right? I am not a woman if there is not a man. I can't define gender without the other side of it, right? So I am not if you are not. And so I ask that we seriously consider how we're doing oneness. Is it just a nice Sunday morning spiritual activity, a feel-good word, a band-aid over niceness? You know, we just want to be nice. Yeah, there's that, and it's important. I like niceness too. But there's some real hard places we need to think about where this oneness is. I want to leave you with the words of Lila Watson. Lila Watson is an Indigenous Australian visual artist, activist, and academic working in the field of women's issues and Aboriginal epistemology, Aboriginal life. She's a Gangulu woman who grew up in central Queensland in her mother's country. She was born in 1940. She's now 79 years old. And she tells people that if you come here to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you've come because your liberation is bound up in mine, then let's work together. There is no other. There's only us. We're one. Thank you.